for us to fight for, right?
Yes, indeed, Doc. There's always more for us to do. That's for sure. And we just kind of continue to try to keep pushing. I'm curious. I want to pivot, keep continuing to talk about families and children. But besides the time that they spend at home, they spend a considerable amount of time at schools,
Yes.
including a majority of their waking hours during the school year. We know that in certain states, particularly in the South, that schools have already started back. And in the on the East Coast, they're about to start back. And we know that whether that be we're talking about Uvalde or other things, that gun violence is plaguing young people. And there's a new study that came out that found that firearm death rates among children in the United States surged by 30%, not just over the past couple years during COVID, but from 2010 through 2019, which is extremely concerning considering that that is a time period that nationally we saw some record lows when it came to violent crime. So I really want people to understand this. Overall, we seen plummets with violent crime. But when it comes to young people with children, we saw a huge increase, 30%. And in states like Indiana, which is where I happen to get my PhD from, I lived there for a long period of time, saw gun related death spike 70%. I mean, what is going on here and what can we do about it?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we've been focused on for a long time at the Children's Defense Fund, and frankly, it just impacts my own life. You don't know this. I lost my older brother to community violence and what would be officially defined as a mass murder, killed with three others
Mm.
in the home of one of his elementary school classmates. So this is something that hits close to home for me, hits close to home for CDF, but we've been trying to advocate for Congress to invest in and protect children, not guns, for a long time. So we talk about 2019, the last year of that particular study that you referenced. In that year, 3,371 children and teens died from guns. That's enough to fill 168 classrooms with 20 children. You've already referenced some more recent things. I think a couple of things. Number one, we recognize the growing pains of economic inequity in all our communities. Now, it's not to say that because someone is dealing with desperation economically that they turn to crime. That's not what we're saying. But we are saying that we have to account for that desperation, and particularly as it begins to intersect with the social and emotional wellness concerns that we've seen around mental health. How do people understand and make meaning of difficult circumstances? And how does that place them in positions of conflict with others in their communities where they live in risk in certain neighborhoods and communities across the United States? So these are critical factors for us. We're pleased to have seen the investments of the bipartisan gun legislation earlier this year. We are disheartened, frankly. We mourn the fact that it took so many children losing their lives to get to that kind of action. And we continue to say that we've got to fund alternatives to what we have generally thought keeps us safe. Um, Police, more guns, and carceral approaches are not what's keeping us safe in communities. We stand with our friends in the Live Free campaign, Pastor Michael McBride and others. We're saying we have to fund peace. We have to fund violence interrupters in community. We have to fund community alternatives and programs for young people that give them jobs during the summer, that support them through intervention, and those who will engage in case management over time for people who are returning to community. And we have to restore the infrastructure of our public health departments in cities across the United States of America. Before coming to DC a couple of years ago, I spent the last 20 years in St. Louis. And, as we experienced there, we have seen an atrophy of the public health departments in the city of St. Louis and in the metropolitan areas across the country, at the same time that so-called public safety budgets that have largely been redounding to the benefit of the pensions of police and firefighters. We've seen those budgets grow, and we've seen public health budgets decrease. So when we're talking about things like violence interruption, or we're talking about alternative approaches to provide support in communities, then those are things that are public health approaches. And so I think we've got to take more of a public health approach to public safety. Of course, we have to curb some of the growth that we've been investing in in police budgets across the country and increase that is put in budgets around recreation for young people and youth serving programs. We got a great opportunity to do that. Great to see some communities doing that with ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funds. In the state of Illinois, we saw a $15 million bill invested in opening doors through freedom school programs. So we're looking forward to providing support and technical assistance to folks who are doing that, who see that intervention of out of school time programming as an opportunity to meet children's needs, meet families' needs, do so in a creative way that affirms their culture, doesn't try to use those funds to lock them up. So these are things that we need to see. I'll say one final point on this. Um, as we talk about what's happening in the South and schools opening up, we absolutely see this need for focusing on creative, recreational, and learning programs, on workforce development and out of school time. But culturally responsive programming is also critical, and that rubs up against a debate people are having about so-called CRT in schools. But we know this works as well. So how we do this work matters as well.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, you're highlighting structural, interpersonal, and socio-emotional issues that we know are impacting young people. These are not simple solutions. They were not created simply. They will not be solved in simple ways. I mean, they intersect with social class and race and gender and masculinity in a lot of different ways. And I'm so sorry to hear about your brother being a victim of violence in this way.